Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar Introduction to Investment Management Theory and Practice, also known as Yale CIMA Prep course. My name is Fiona Bi, and I'm the Senior Account Manager at Yale Executive Education. To everyone on the line, we at Yale Executive Education hope that you and your families are doing well. There's a lot happening in the world right now, and we know with the global health crisis comes complexity, uncertainty, and shifting of priorities. This is our 5th year offering this program, and in that time, we have worked with over 2,000 participants. In our webinar this afternoon, we encourage you to listen and engage. If you have questions, please post them. This is your time to get your questions answered. Our program director, Jim Dobbs, is very knowledgeable, and this is your opportunity to pick his brain. To ask questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your question to everyone or just to me. I suggest you send it to everyone. They might have a similar question in mind. Another option is a chat button. Typically, we prefer you use a Q&A for questions directed towards the speaker and chat for technical questions you would like assistance on. Now to introduce our program director, Jim Dobbs is a CIMA certified. He's also CFP and CPWA certified. He was a financial advisor himself for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring from it to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with the different certifying bodies and universities for the last 17 years, helping build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments and Wealth Institute, formerly IMCA. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served the IWI in many roles, including as the chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. You will see he's a passionate guy. He's committed to success, and he measures his success based on yours. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, if I can get myself on the screen, there we go. Can you see and hear me okay, Fiona?
Yes.
Great. Well, thanks for that kind introduction and welcome everyone. So yeah, Fiona's right. I mean, we're here to help you with the education, also the test prep. The idea is for those of you for whom CIMA is a good fit on the certification side and choosing Yale is a good move for you, then we want to help you all the way through certification, not just the education component. So we'll spend about an hour here, depending on the number of questions, largely depending on the number of questions we get from you, but this is your opportunity. Look, yeah, you can talk with me offline. Well, actually it's online, but not in the webinar, by phone or email. That's fine too. So if you have personal situations like questions, oh, I think this really only pertains to me, like, is my experience gonna meet the 3-year requirement of IWI, and here's my experience, blah, 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 blah. That would be the kind of thing to run through me personally, individually. But yeah, for the rest of it, don't hesitate. Just put those questions in. I'll stop a couple of times along the way. Fiona will stop me if the questions start piling up. And then we'll probably even have a minute or two at the end, even with questions throughout, to opportunity to answer those as well. It's really just meant as an information session, try to get as much important information to you so that you can figure out, again, if CIMA certification is right for you, and then if it is the Yale path the best route to go? Look, if you can check the box on yes on both of those, then we want you to join us at Yale. But if not, then no, because your time is valuable. It's not just, you know, money that it takes to earn a certification. It's your time, it's your effort, it's opportunity cost. So I really want to help you make a very informed decision, even if that means it's not CIMA or it's not Yale CIMA. So we'll go through a little bit of the topic list, certification comparison, then we'll kind of go big picture goals and objectives. Then we'll start diving in the weeds a little bit, structure details, talk about the online learning tools and resources you'll have. With a group on the webinar so big, I would imagine many of you have already done online learning. Well, I could double that almost, right, with the COVID experience we've all had for 18 months. So even more of you have done something online in the last 18 months. But there could be some of you that have still never done an educational or certification program online. Kind of want to hopefully put you at ease, give you some information in terms of what you can expect if you choose the Yale CIMA program. And all of this is just designed, again, to help you figure out if the certification is right for you and if our program at Yale is a good fit for you in terms of your learning style, your learning preferences, those kinds of things. All right, so here's the core topic list. I'm not going to go through all of it. There's a longer version of this that's in like a color-coded PDF with exam topic weightings. So if you don't have that, you can get that through our website, the Yale CIMA homepage, or IWI's website. Just go to CIMA Certification, or made it easy for you. If you just want to shoot me an email after I get done here, or we get done together today, I'll just send that to you via email. But I think that's really important as you kind of eyeball the list. I think probably most of you have at least seen this high level list before. I think looking at the longer list is important if you're still not sure if CIMA certification is right for you. And the question to ask yourself as you go through the longer version of this topics list is, as you're reading about fixed income or equities or alternatives or behavioral finance or portfolio theories, portfolio construction, etc., is learning more about this topic going to help me in my practice now and where I want to take my practice? And just asking that question kind of subconsciously or maybe even unconsciously as you read through every line item. And I think after going through 100 and something lines, your gut probably is going to be pretty strong about, yeah, it's kind of nailing this down for me. This is exactly or more or less what I thought it was going to be. This is a good certification fit for me. Or, by the time you get through that 4 or 5 pager, you're like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought so, but now I'm really not sure. Okay, well, then you need to do some more digging, but maybe this is not the best fit for you. So I think going through the topic list in detail is really critical for those of you who are considering CIMA versus CFA or CFP, etc. I think that's a very valuable resource for you. All right, speaking of some of the other certifications, let's just talk about a couple of the big ones, just to kind of differentiate. I think probably most of you know this, so I won't spend too much time. I assume CIMA is really meant for, it says the noun is analyst, right? Certified Investment Management Analyst. They've also now included advisor. And when I think of our participants and the thousands of participants I've worked with through the years, even before I started the online program at Yale, most are financial planners, financial advisors, investment advisors, investment consultants. And there are a fair amount of individuals that work for investment companies. So they are suppliers, or think of them as wholesalers. All of those types of people, individuals, work really well for the CIMA. They're a good match for the CIMA curriculum, as opposed to CFA, also another outstanding program in marks. That's really, in my opinion, best for somebody that wants to become a traditional institutional portfolio manager. Like, I want to go manage a small cap international equity fund for PIMCO or Nuveen or Fidelity or somebody, or I want to be an analyst and maybe eventually work my way up to portfolio manager. Those individuals, especially here in the US, yeah, I think CFA is definitely the way to go. CIMA was actually created after CFA, and some professors and practitioners were having discussions and thinking, I don't know that the client-facing financial advisors and investment consultants and advisors, I don't know if they need everything that's in CFA. I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt them to have it, but maybe there's a way we can create something that's a bit more focused on what they do regularly, that they can get through quicker, still make it challenging and a defendable exam and certification, but it's just, an alternative. And that's kind of how CIMA got its beginnings. CFA or CFP, Certified Financial Planner, is, as the title would indicate, it's financial planning. So investments is just one sleeve, one section of that particular curriculum. Also a great certification. One question that I get asked regularly, so I'll go ahead and throw it out there real quickly anyway, is do I do CIMA or CFP? I think if you're a financial planner or advisor and investments is core or really important in what you do, I think both is the answer. And then the question is, well, which do you get first? CFP takes about a year and a half for most people. Some people half that time, some people twice that long, but a year and a half is normal for CFP. For CIMA, our candidates, it's 4 to 6 months once they start. It's not because CIMA is any easier an exam than CFP. I would argue CIMA on a question by question basis is slightly more challenging than CFP, but they're both close in terms of difficulty. It's just there's a whole lot more to learn and be tested on in CFP, and that's the biggest reason, in my opinion, why it takes so much longer to get CFP. So I think in terms of your priorities in your practice, like what do you do most of the time? What's most important in terms of service? Is it broad-based financial planning? Well, then maybe CFP is the way you go first. But if investments is a big or the biggest part of what you do in your job function and responsibility, then CIMA is probably what you do first. Hopefully that helps in case some of you are in that boat, just trying to figure out, yeah, I think I want to do both, but I'm not sure which one. CPWA is the sister program at Yale to CIMA. That is kind of like a CFP now what? CFP is actually not required for our CPWA program or even to get into CPWA candidacy through IWI, but it helps. And CPWA is really meant to look at financial planning challenges and strategies, tax ramifications, et cetera, for your high net worth clients, your $5, $10, $20 million and up families that you're serving. So it's more similar to CFP, but it is narrower and it just focuses on your high net worth clients. So that's the difference there. So hopefully that helps a little bit. There was a great quote I had from Richard, one of our candidates a couple of years ago, and he's actually at a firm, and he's actually part of the training decisions and committee. When he told me this after he went through our program and got CIMA certified, he's like, you know what, I've done them both, and we're going to change what we're doing in our firm now, because I mean, CFA is clearly the way to go for the more technical, the people that need to be more technical, analysts, portfolio managers. But for our client-facing teams, everything from sales to service, including advisors, CIMA just looks like a much better fit now that I've done them both. And so now they send their client-facing people to us instead of doing CFA. So yeah, I think that's a really great practical example of how this all plays out. If you have any questions on your target path, your career path, and whether you should do CIMA or CFA, yeah, just reach out to me separately by email, and we can either talk about your situation and decision through email or the phone. All right, a couple more slides here, and then we'll stop for early questions. Program goals and objectives. This is important, I think, no matter what program you go through, no matter what certification you choose and what educational provider you choose. I think this is important to know what the institution is trying to help you do. That helps set the expectations. Now, that core list of topics I showed you a couple slides ago, that then has 4 or 5 pages and like over 100 lines of detail. Our first and primary objective is to cover all of that, like all of it, not leave anything out, and cover it at the right level for somebody in the financial services position that you most likely have: financial advisor, financial consultant, investment advisor, investment consultant. Number 2 is the one I get most excited about. It is the hardest one to measure, and we can probably really only know years after you've gone through and implemented some of this in your practice and in your job functions. But it's to help you develop knowledge, tools, resources, skills for your specific job or practice. You know, how much of this was applicable? Could you plug it right in to your practice? Are you measuring performance and risk of the investments that you are choosing and recommending? And can you do it well? Well, going through CIMA, you're going to learn way over a dozen different ways to do that, both on the risk and the performance and the risk-adjusted performance way. What about portfolio construction? Maybe you don't make the decision on the investment strategies, but you recommend them to your clients and or service those accounts. how well do you know, the rationale for that investment strategy? Can you defend it? Do you know where some weaknesses and or risks are in it? I think it's very, very helpful for all of us to know. I was a discretionary advisor, so I managed the portfolios for the last 20 years of my career dealing with private clients. Many of you don't have that discretionary ability in your current job function. But again, even if you work for a firm and they say, well, these are the models we have, this is what you are going to implement and sell, you need to know those inside and out, including on the technical side. So this program should give you the skills to do that. And then last but not least, certainly not least, especially as you get closer to your certification exam date, we'll talk about the timing and logistics in a minute. Yeah, I get it. Eventually, it's going to be less about your practice and more about the exam, because you just want to finish and you want to pass that test on your first attempt. So totally get it. So we've created a program that includes the education as part B. So once you pass the education component, and I'll show you those requirements in a minute, you can check that box. And then it's all about studying for the exam. You won't need, if you choose Yale, you won't need any other study materials. There's some study materials out there for free at IWI. We don't even recommend you look at any of those until you digested fully what we have. And then if you've done well on our assessments, you really don't even need to look at that. And then there's some pay options out there. We just never recommend that. So you're going to have everything you need at Yale to be successful, not only in our course, but on the certification exam. All right, so we created this online program years ago, well before the pandemic. It's not like we're predicting that or anything, but we knew from IWI's board and senior management that a lot of candidates for CIMA and CPWA wanted an online option, a fully online option. I don't want to travel. I don't want to have all that. I want to study whenever and wherever I want. So not only did we create an online program to meet that demand, but we created it to be on demand. So it's not like you have to show up on Tuesday night for a live, lecture, or every couple of weeks for this or that and projects and homework and that kind of thing. No, everything is on demand. The only thing that we have gated in our program is the test prep. So you're not even going to get into the test prep for the certification exam until you pass the course first. And the reason we do that is really want you focusing on the content. Do you understand it? Some of the more challenging concepts and applications, walking you through those in traditional college lecture form, and then some tests just to make sure you were paying attention and are picking up the basics. And so that's at the course level. Everything else is not gated, so you can kind of roam around and do what you want. Now, that being said, here's tip number one for the webinar, and if you choose our program, you do want to follow the roadmap. We give you a roadmap at the course level and then also at the test prep level. You really want to follow that A to Z. When we see participants just deviating a little bit, whatever, that's when we can kind of sometimes see some of the pass rates go down a little bit. Pass rates are high for the Yale CIMA candidates. On IWI's website, you can go to their website, and buried in their 18 pages or whatever that describe the CIMA certification. One of them is on exams, so you can look at pass rates. Ours was 77% for the last calendar quarter that they reported, pretty high. And ours over the last 4.5 years, 5 years we've been doing this is between 65 and 70% on a first time attempt. And that's with about 94% of our students reporting back to us. And then we go to the IWI website to confirm their certification status. So all that to say, yeah, we've got a strong pass rate, and I want to keep that momentum going. And that gives people like you who are considering a program like this some confidence to know, okay, if it sounds good to you, hopefully it does, that, hey, yeah, the pass rate is strong. And I got a good chance if I just do what they say and put in the time to pass on my first attempt. You can download, copy, save, and print everything. As long as we don't start seeing it out on Quizlet and some of these other websites, as long as we don't see it in the public domain, we're not going to lock it down. And here we are about 5 years in, and we haven't seen that in mass yet. So just here and there, we'll see something. So that's good. As long as everybody's following the Yale policy, you can download, copy, save, and print. We don't send you paper copies. For a number of reasons, we don't do that. But you can print whatever you want. But with 2,500 pages of readings, 1,000 slides for this, 400 slides for the course lectures, 1,000 practice questions over that, you're going to pick and choose. And I think that's a good thing. You pick and choose what you want to download. Well, if it were me, I would download everything. But in terms of what you actually print, and how you lay it out in your own PDF or Word document or whatever, that's really up to you. So you're going to customize in that kind of way. All right, let's talk about nuts and bolts, and then we'll stop for questions. Program fee, I think probably most of you know this from our website and IWI's website that has the different fees for the different programs. We're $4,500, that's all inclusive. You will have an IWI fee to get into CIMA candidacy. You do have to be a CIMA candidate to earn eligibility, if you will, to get into this particular Yale program. You go through IWI's website to apply for candidacy. They pull up your background, check to make sure your regulatory history is acceptable, that kind of thing. That cost about $1,000. I think it's $995 right now. They change it from time to time. And that includes a membership, which you do not have to renew after year one. They just kind of include it as a perk or a benefit of your candidacy fee. If you're rejected and your application is denied for candidacy, then they don't charge you that $1,000. So that's kind of a nice thing. So anyway, that's it. So $1,000 basically to get into the process to become a candidate. Hang on just a second. Thank you. And then $4,500 to Yale. That includes your course, your online course, and all of your test prep. Again, no need to do any other test prep if you choose us. Hey, look, you can start anytime you want. Well, that was another thing. If we're going to go asynchronous and you can kind of go at your own pace and what have you, then there's no need to say, well, we're going to, every quarter, we're going to have people kind of roll in, matriculate at the same time. No, you're all different. Your practices are different. Your private lives are different. So we have students, candidates enrolling, registering in this program almost every single day of the year, literally. And so we have anywhere from 400 to 650 candidates coming into this program alone every year. So yeah, it's almost every single day. So you're going to pick the time, and that's kind of tip number 2. I think timing is important. You're going to have plenty of time in terms of the access you get to this program. We'll talk about in just a few seconds. But that being said, I think timing is still important. So for example, if you're like big heavy on tax side, but you need to beef up your investment skills, so you're doing CIMA, then you might not want to start in January, because January, February, March, heavy tax season for that first deadline for the year prior. So, you know, I wouldn't start it there. If you're heavy in tax practice, so you're probably going to start in late April or May even. So I think timing is important. I was in private practice for 27 years, and some things I could predict and they were seasonal. But when you're dealing with private clients, you just never know what's going to happen, right? It's just kind of all over the place. So I think you just look out over the next 6 months, for example, on your calendar and your work schedule and your private life and go, hey, does that look like a really horrible time to start? Like, it's going to be hard to squeeze out 10 hours a week, give or take, to study for something like this. If you look out over the next 3 or 6 months and you're like, yeah, that's not an ideal time, then that's probably not the time to start. But if you look out over the next 3 or 6 months and you go, well, it's not going to be easy because I'm really super busy. Well, that's great. I mean, if you're successful, busy. But, you know, every 3 or 6 months period could be like that for you. But you're like, well, but it's not any worse than any other 3 or 6 months. Okay, well, then maybe that is a good time to start. So I think the timing for you is important. Also, the more excited you are about it and thinking, okay, I'm ready to take this next step in my career and go for this challenge, you know, I think that helps too, because having motivation and energy out of the gate will really help you get off to a good start. IWI is still offering scholarships. Look, we thought this was going to end last year, but they've continued to roll it on through 2021. So you should go to their scholarship fund page. Fiona in the next few days is going to send you this slide deck. Or you can just go to their website and type in scholarships in the little search function at the top right-hand side of their webpage. and it'll come up and you can look. There are like several different, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different criteria for earning scholarship. So as you might expect, minority status, have one for the type of practice or business you're in, especially for independent RIAs and other companies. Go check it out. It's not just kind of some of the normal criteria. There are some others as well. So go check it out if you even think that you might qualify for that. From a logistical standpoint, it's important to note, before you apply for candidacy, you're going to do the scholarship application first. So if you're not going to do the scholarship application, it's really simple. Apply for candidacy and then register for the Yale program once you get approved through IWI. If you're going to do the scholarship application, then it's 3 steps. It's scholarship application first, get their results back, and then you go and apply for CIMA candidacy, and then you would go on and register for the Yale course. So logistically important to keep that order in mind. And then I mentioned you'll have plenty of time to finish. Again, our candidates take about 4 to 6 months. It's about 150 hours, give or take, on average. Talk about that on the next slide. But we give you a whole year. The thinking being, look, when somebody starts, even if they're relatively slow, if they work the first 6 months, they should be done, including passing the certification exam. So we're going to give you twice that amount of time. And there were some other business and logistical reasons for that. So point is, you should have plenty of time to get through this program and get certified in an entire year. But let's just stop it right there, Fiona, and see if we've got any early questions.
We only have one question asking about scholarships. So I already sent the link to IWI website. So you can find, like what Jim said, a couple of scholarships there. And Yale doesn't provide scholarship, and no more additional questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, so just go check them out at IWI. Just so you know, also another little detail, least expensive programs we have at Yale, including even in executive education. So it's just due up front, although I realize fully half of you are going to be reimbursed. But for those of you who are not, yeah, no payment plan, that $4,500 is just due right up front. All right, let's talk about a biggie. Average is normal in this program. CPWA is a little bit more like the 200-hour. CIMA is actually closer to the 150. But that being said, we have some noticeable outliers. I'm not going to say they're huge fat tails on population curve, if you want to think of that. We've had dozens of people finish in just a matter of weeks, like under a month, finish the course, study for, pass the exam. Now, those are exceptional students, and we've had thousands of individuals. So you would think, yeah, you probably have dozens of people like that. But on the other side of that, if you're new to the business, you've barely hit your 3 years, or you haven't hit your 3 years yet, and you're going to go ahead and start the process anyway, knowing that even if you pass the test, you have to wait till you hit the 3 years to use the marks. That's IWI rules. But you're going to go ahead and get started anyway. And maybe you didn't study this in college, so maybe it's going to take you hundreds of hours, because we do occasionally have people that they report back, oh yeah, this took me many hundreds of hours to get through. But a lot of this comes down to several different factors, not just the experience that I mentioned, but your existing knowledge, study habits. Let me circle back to that in a minute. Test taking skills. Do you have learning challenges, learning disabilities? With thousands of candidates in our program through the years, clearly I have seen individuals with learning challenges and even disabilities. Now, if you're in that boat, you probably already know it, and you've made it a habit throughout your life of just pushing through anyway and getting it done despite your additional challenges. So the same thing will be here. It'll be a little more challenging. You may have to put in some more time, but you can get through it. We have individuals with learning challenges get through it all the time. Again, just the expectation's different, but I suspect you know that already. given all the things you've seen and experienced before. Study habits is another one. So this is the next study tip, if you will, especially in our program, but really for any program. And I think it really kind of directly correlates to the COVID days that we're still, unfortunately, in and living through. The good news is some of you have extra time, and that's why you're actually considering doing a certification now, because maybe you don't have a commute, and you don't know when your commute is going to come back. So it's like, hey, that frees up an hour, 2 hours, maybe more each day, 5 days a week. I'm going to apply that to study time. So don't have to go out and see clients face to face. Well, I say have to, get to. It's done by Zoom, but that's much more efficient once you get the habit of it. So that being said, you've got more time and more capacity, but on the downside is you're in your home office or library, and the TV's going across the wall, the family's doing their thing, and it's just harder to stay focused because of the interruptions. So just a word to the wise, it's great that you've got the extra time, especially if that allows you to do something like this where you couldn't before or didn't before, but you're really going to have to carve out special times of your week to make sure, okay, this 2-hour spot, this 90-minute spot, and 90 to 120 minutes is usually pretty good in terms of targeted study time. 30-minute slots is okay. Some of this is really deep content, and it's hard to flip the switch and go from, okay, I just got off the phone with a client or a prospect, and now I'm going to spend 30 minutes going through the CAPM. I mean, it's just not that easy for most people, including myself, to flip the switch and change gears like that. So an hour and a half to 2-hour slots is usually best for your scheduled study times. And then you need to stick that, okay, mom or dad or whatever just can't really go in there during those study times because he or she needs to be doing their thing. So I think that's really, really important. Don't want you to get caught off guard with that particular challenge. Again, the bottom line here, as I kind of alluded to earlier, but really hopefully nailed it down for you here, is look, you can get through this thing as fast or slowly as you want to. One of the benefits to making this asynchronous and not forcing you to come in at certain times of the day or week and in order is, for those of you who want to fast track it and be that less than 50-hour candidate to get certified, you can do that. And you're not going to be slowed down by anybody who's struggling with the material. And then vice versa. If you're struggling with the material or just want to go more methodically and more diligently anyway in it. So you're going to be able to see each other in the discussion board if you want to. That's completely voluntary. Talk about that in a minute. But the point is, you're going to move through at your own pace. If you want to study at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, well, by golly, go right ahead. And you're just going to pick and choose when it's most convenient for you. And remember, since I said that you can download everything, you don't really even have to be online to study. You could put it on your hard drive and study from that if you didn't have good connection or you didn't have any connection at all. The only thing you really have to be online for in our program is at the course level. There are some tests I'll talk about in just a minute, and those you do need. Let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the learning tools and resources. Want to give you a pretty good flavor of what you're looking at. So we use Canvas for this particular program. I love Canvas. It's one of the biggest, one of the most stable. It almost never goes down. Well, I shouldn't say that, knock on the wood. I don't want to jinx us, but love the program. It's got enough bells and whistles that I could incorporate to kind of make it interesting and even a bit creative sometimes, but there's not much of a learning curve, and that was really important. I want to make sure that anybody could spend about an hour on it and then like feel really comfortable with where everything is and then get what they need each time they come in. We use my text that I created at Wiley a few years ago, along with Investment Planning Answer Book by Jay Shine, Bodekine and Marcus, that traditional investments text that a lot of you, including me, used either in a graduate program or even undergraduate to study investments. And then we use, so those are 3 of the big texts we use. Of course, it's all online. And then we use an old math workbook that IWI created years ago. I don't think anybody else is using it, but it's great. because it takes most, I would say about 95% of what you're going to be tested on mathematically on the exam. And it kind of puts it's in their language. So I think that's really helpful. Even though it's kind of an old format, but it's beautiful because if you understand most of what's in that workbook, remember I said before, we got part A and a part B. Part A is the course. Part B is test prep to get ready for the certification exam. At the course level, I only want you spending about 40 hours there. Some of you can knock it out in half that time, but you're going to have about 30 hours of lecture video, just like if you were in New Haven and we were all teaching, at the front of the class and you were sitting there watching. It's just like that. We just did it in the Yale studio instead. One little tip, you'll figure it out soon enough, but for me, a guy like me is important. When I'm watching a video or watching a lecture live, not always, but sometimes somebody will say something really good and like really deep, like complex. And with the on-demand feature, I really like this because I could just pause the video and scroll back 7 minutes and watch that again and again if I need to. So I think that's a really cool component to a program layout like this. But yeah, no more than about 40 hours of the course level, watching those video lessons, taking some notes, not over scrutinize it, not even thinking about the test yet, just nailing down concepts and applications, going into the textbooks if you need a deeper dive where the lecturer didn't happen to go into it, or you're just really curious about that strategy or construction of a portfolio or whatever, and you just want to read more, you can do that. And then you take section tests. There are 11 of them. They're online, they're open book. They're really meant to assess to some degree, but just make sure you're paying attention. Because like if you were in New Haven, we could have you sign in and I would know you're there. It's not quite the same with online. So that's just a little bit of an assessment and a guardrail for us to help you with. So that's what it looks like at the course level. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Once you complete those 11, pass those 11 tests, and you can take them as many times as you need to, you've earned your Yale certificate of completion of this course. It checks the educational requirement off at IWI on your candidacy status. And then we send your name within 24 hours to IWI. They send you confirmation and say, great, John, you or Sally, you have finished the education program. We just got confirmation from Yale. Now it's time to schedule your certification exam. They open up a 4-month basically window, 120-day window for you to schedule and take your exam. So I'll come back to that timing. So think of that 4 months. Keep that in the back of your head for just a minute here. And then at that time, the test prep material in the Yale program, think of that as part B, that will now open for you. So at the course level, it's like, do I understand these concepts and applications? How can I apply these in practice? Let me think about my clients and my services, that kind of thing. Now, once you flip the switch and move into test prep, it's kind of like, okay, now let's just focus on the test. What's on it? What's not on it? All the nuts and bolts. And then that's what we're going to focus on. It's a new set of videos, this time all by me, not the other instructors. And it's just, hey, let's go through 500 topics and about test much on what's right there on their exam topic list for your prior work slides and all these practice questions, both by section and in mock exam form, to just make sure you nail it down and have a really good chance to pass on your first attempt as you go in. Now, we do give you sample 30, 60, layout for how to get through the 23 sections and leave yourself time for and final it's just go right down the middle. It's kind of like 2 months. Okay, I'm going to cram for this test for 2 months and I'm going to go in and sit and pass it. And that's where easily 2/3 of our students target that kind of down right down the middle. And if you're not sure after the course, you just reach out to me and we can walk through it. But yeah, right down the middle is usually the best way to go. So that's what test prep is: videos, notes, exercises, practice questions, slides that you can make note cards and flashcards out of. Quick thought there. I wouldn't want to create flashcards out of all 1,500 slides because some of it is supplemental or a deeper dive if you're struggling with this concept or application. So you're going to make your own. I learned a long time ago when I first set up my first program at the University of Texas, CFP, many years ago. There's great value in you creating your own slides, your own note cards, flashcards, because you're picking and choosing what you are and aren't going to include. You're actually writing or typing it out. That mental process alone is hugely valuable, according to, well, education, research and studies, but also, secondly, my own just kind of anecdotal evidence through the years as well. So anyway, lots of cool stuff to work with there, and you need to use all of those tools and resources. Remember, you got the library that I talked about on the last page with all 2,500 pages of readings. That's for the deeper dive when you need it. But my point is, you're going to use all the resources, but all of you are going to gravitate to some combination of resources that fits your learning style better. The last thing I do want to mention, and it does not matter which program you go into, for a certification exam that's at this level, that's this challenging, think CFA level 1, think FRM, think CIMA, think CFP, CPWA. They test at such a cognitive level that just reviewing practice questions will not get it done. You're going to have to use other resources, other forms of explanation to get a dive that's deep enough for you to really comprehend something. That way, if you see something on the exam, even if it's different than exactly what you saw, you've got enough knowledge and cognitive skill to kind of see, okay, how is it different? Okay, is that information important? Is that extraneous? Okay, I'm going to reanalyze it. Okay, I can make the adjustment. I can get to the answer. It's that level of knowledge and skill that's going to be required of you on this exam. All right, I'm going to let you stare at the calculator policy because there's a lot of wording there, as Fiona tells me if we've got any other questions.
We have one question. Do you have to have at least 3 years of financial service experience to become a CIMA candidate?
Great question. And the short answer is no. You don't have to have 3 years to begin the process. You do have to have 3 years of accepted financial and or investment experience, according to IWI, to earn the marks. But it's not a big number. It's definitely less than 10%. It may not even quite be 5% of our candidates who, they haven't hit their 3 years yet. Maybe they're a year and a half in or 2 years into their career. They've started the process. They're going to do their education, part A of our program. They're going to study for and take and hopefully pass first attempt their cert exam. And they're still going to end up on this side of the 3 years. They won't have hit their 3 years by the time they finish all of this. Well, that's okay. Then they just, let's say they got 6 months left. They just can't use the marks. They just can't call themselves a CIMA designee or certificate yet until they hit that 3 year requirement would be then the last of all the requirements that they would have met. So yeah, totally fine to do that. I think the only caution I would have is if you're brand new into this business and like you took the Series 7 2 weeks ago, that's really great that you're ambitious enough to even think about taking on the CIMA at this point. You might want to call me and we can have a little side conversation to see just to make sure you know what you're getting into. Series 7 compared to CIMA. Series 7 is not a hard test. It's not a super easy one either. I'm going to say it's squarely intermediate. And you can, in my opinion, pass the 7 with note cards and practice questions. Even just practice questions. The test prep providers know that those series exams so well. These professional certification exams at the highest level, like CIMA, Yeah, it's not that way. We know pretty much what's coming in terms of content coverage in most of the sections, but the questions are rotated. There's all kind of variations of the questions. There's just no way to say, here's 1,000 questions, go memorize these and you will pass. So this is a different level. You're going to be stepping it up quite a notch from your series exams. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You can. You just need to know that, coming in the door. But great question. Fiona, was that it, or you got any more?
No more.
Okay, so let's plow forward. So you've seen the calculator policy now. This is right out of the CIMA candidate handbook. I'll send you a copy of that if you want to too. Just shoot me an email, jim.dobbs@yale.edu. Send you that along with the formula sheet and the core topics list, as I mentioned earlier. For those of you who don't use a financial calculator or haven't in a while, that's usually the more common response on calculators. Here's a list of the ones you can use. I've highlighted the most popular ones that we see in our course. I use a 12C. That's one of the older, more established ones. I wouldn't do that unless you're okay spending 2 or 3 hours learning how to use your calculator. So yeah, probably don't want to do that. The rest of these you can probably, I don't know about master, but get a good feel for in 30 minutes or an hour. The website link at the bottom there is fabulous. Now you may have your own, that's great. But I love this professor's website. It's free. And he's even got a, I'm not even sure which calculator I want to get page. So, and then you can go on there, whether you're studying for CFA or CIMA or CFP, and he'll give you ideas on what he thinks is best. And of course, a couple of these are on that list as well. The point is, if you're not feeling great about your calculator, you will need your calculator on this test, a financial calculator. I think spending an hour on his website, choosing your whatever calculator you have, because he does all the major financial calculators, and go through those 12 to 15 examples, pretty detailed, step by step. This is the order, and this is the exact button you hit when you're calculating present value, future value, internal rate of return, etc. Spend about an hour refamiliarizing yourself. I think that's way more efficient than going to your calculator owner's manual. Most of those are just horrible in terms of being user friendly. So spend an hour on this guy's website if you need to, and you should be fine in the Yale program. All right, where's my help? This is an important one as well. Study time and expectations, that kind of thing is one of the common questions. Here's another one. This is online, it's distance, and we are not, and because it's asynchronous, we're not going to be there. We're there day in and day out, as I'll explain, but we're not going to be there to just walk you through everything. You need to be pretty self-autonomous. Is that redundant? You need to be autonomous to get through this program, but you do have help. Well, first of all, having done this for many years, even before Yale, and thousands of candidates through the years, I already kind of know out of the 23 sections and 500 plus topics and a couple thousand topics, at least where the majority are going to struggle, especially as it pertains to what they might see on the exam. So we can get ahead of that by best practices, study tips, orientation video, other little videos, the test prep videos, etc. So we can kind of get ahead of those most commonly asked questions to begin with. This discussion board is very lively in the Yale CIMA program, and I highly encourage you to use it. So all 23 sections, an exam prep section, some other sections, form study groups through there. We don't make your name and information available, but if you want to volunteer it, just saw one yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, a candidate reached out and said, I forget which night he said, but he said, like, I'd love to do a study group. Maybe it was Tuesday night, for 2 hours or something. So yeah, you want to use that discussion board. Here's another use of the discussion board. We leave up the discussions between students and then between students and us as faculty that are frequently asked or we think are really important. Now we're going to clean them out through time, as you can imagine, but we want it to act as an FAQ, because if you're like, oh my gosh, the SML and the CAPM, it's so theoretical. I know it's a relatively small piece of the exam, the curriculum, but I just don't get it. Great, go into that section and see the other questions that others have asked about those. That will definitely help. Now, if you ever have questions that are administrative, logistical, technical on the computer side, so like, oh, my lecture videos looks great yesterday, just, no problem. But today, something's going on. What is it? It's probably not a Canvas problem. It's probably there's a firewall, or maybe you need to tweak your settings. There's something on your end. There's 24/7 support through Canvas at Yale for IT. So that's really cool, especially if you're like up at 1 o'clock in the morning or something and need some IT help. But on I forgot how to log in, or I forgot how much time I have left of my 365, stuff like that. Then 8 to 5 Eastern time, Monday through Friday, Yale and Dobbs education staff are available for you, whenever you have a question by phone or email, or you can actually ask a question through the Canvas site to staff as well. And then lastly, but I think importantly, when you have content questions, yeah, there is help, even though I said you need to be able to get through most of this on your own. But I think everybody at some point might have a question on the content. Either I just don't, I need to know this for my practice and it's just not sinking in. I watched the video, I read through the summary slides, I even went back into the readings. It helped a little bit, but I just got a couple of questions I need ironed out. You have that, we call them lifelines, you get about a dozen of those. So the point is, when you run into something that's really important and you've exhausted your other resources, yeah, you want to reach out and then ask. Behavioral biases, like the differences between some of them are kind of a little sticky. Okay, well, use one of your lifelines and reach out. Eric Rabanian on Yale CIMA is fabulous. He's the faculty program member who works with you guys on your dozen lifelines. Just so you know, most candidates don't even need to use anywhere near their 12 lifelines. Very rarely do we get a situation where somebody's bumping up against their max limit for their time with us. But when you do, and it's important, yeah, you definitely want to reach out to Eric, get his help. He is a CIMA, a CFP. He's also an attorney, financial planner, and been around almost as long as I have, actually just about as long as I have. So he's a great resource. And then finally on this page, if you ever have a study plan or scheduling strategies issue, you'll still reach out to me. I'm still serving in that role. We can talk about it by email. It's usually better by phone for that one. The content questions are all going to be in email. We want those to be in writing so you can put those in your notebook for later. Because if you're like me, I would forget what I asked Eric 3 weeks ago, let alone how he helped me with it. So that's all done in writing. But on the study plans and strategies, let's just have a quick phone call. Make sure you know what you're supposed to be studying and you've got your timing right, and kind of kick that around. Usually in 5 or 10 minutes, we can kind of nail that down pretty tight. So there's your help there. So yeah, you have help, but it is limited. You need to know that we're not priced like a traditional university degree program or course. So therefore we can't offer the same kind of faculty support in that regard. All right, we're just about at the end here. Couple more slides. I'll let you look at Yale faculty and see if Fiona's got any more questions from you guys. Toby is our lead faculty member from Yale. He is outstanding. Worked with him for almost 15 years now. So way before Yale, he and I were doing work at Chicago Booth and did some other projects together, conferences and programming. He's fabulous. He does most of the heavy lifting on portfolio theory, portfolio construction, new styles and strategies. Think smart beta is one that he specializes in. So he's going to walk you through that. John Nersessian is going to do actually a fair amount of the math that you're going to see on the certification exam. And we kind of have that in a workshop format at the course level, where it's kind of hands-on and you're working through problems with him as he walks you through a lecture in that regard. Roger Ibbotson, probably a lot of you know him by name, at least you probably like me have his stocks, bonds, bills, and inflation yearbook up on your library bookshelf there. And as you can imagine, he's going to walk you through market history, correlations, returns, risk metrics, those kinds of things. And he actually shows you a little bit of a look into the future on some of the research that's coming down the pike, if you will, in terms of some potential strategies you're probably going to see out in the marketplace in the next several years. And then we've got about 3 other faculty members as well. Fiona, any questions? Any more questions?
No question.
Okay, well, let's just roll on. I'm going to let you look at the feedback, guys, and you can go to our website. We've got lots more quotes and those kind of things. I'm really focusing, now that we've done this for so many years and we're through the learning curve, just want to make sure the pass rates are really strong and acceptable to me, and both in absolute and in relative terms compared to our peers, our competitors. And then I want to look at about 30 different metrics we ask you on your candidate or participant survey after you take your certification exam, pass or fail. We want to survey you right after that and just get a really good, raw, true feel. Really, we're looking at the quantitative metrics, make sure we're in the high 4s out of 5 as many times as we can be in the most important areas. As you can see, kind of a summary of some of those. NPS or Net Promoter Score of 68. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Your firm or company is probably using Net Promoter Score. You may not know it by that name, but look that one up. Feel very, very good about our 68 in the Yale CIMA program. So all of this, we're just trying to help you figure out, is this right for you? Is flexibility to study on your own schedule important? Customizing your learning plan, like do you lean heavily on videos and practice questions, or are you a voracious reader? You want to spend more time doing that in summary slides? How important is that to you? I think we've got the best option for those of you who really appreciate that. Comprehensive coverage, both not in the course level, because there's only so much we can do in 40 hours, but in test prep for sure, all those 500 plus topics covered in great detail. Motivation and self-discipline, you gotta have that. We're actually gonna send you monthly emails, and I'm gonna be posting to you, when you came in, your month, I'm gonna be posting weekly study tips and guides for you, along with all the other things I talked about. But I can't reach through the computer, through the camera here and make you do it. So you do need to have enough motivation and self-discipline to do this, even though we're giving you the plan, you still got to pull it off. So look, if you're ready for a challenge, and this will be a challenge, you can do it, but this is a challenge. If you're ready for that and you want to join us at Yale, put the Yale certificate up on your wall, have it in your LinkedIn bio, have it in your bio, your CV, etc. Love to have you join us. You can, again, you've got to apply for candidacy through IWI first, and then you'll come over to the Yale site and you'll click on the register or enroll now button once you've got your CIMA number, which is what IWI gives you once they approve you. And it's pretty simple. It takes a few days to a week to go through the candidacy protocol at IWI. Same thing with us at Yale. We have to go through Yale Central. So it takes about a few days to a week to get you up and running once you've registered for our program on our website. There's Fiona's contact information, any questions regarding Yale, School of Management, Executive Education, other programs. And then, for the certification part, CIMA, CFP, CPWA, our program, don't hesitate to reach out to me by phone or email. Happy to help however I can, just hoping that you can make the right decision for you. All right, Fiona, that's it from me, but let's see if we've got any final questions.
I don't see any questions.
Okay, great. So thank you for joining us. And again, reach out to me if I can be of any more service to you. And Fiona, back to you.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon and for submitting so many thoughtful questions. I really appreciate that. For more information, you can visit our website or reach out to us directly with any additional questions. This webinar, including the video recording and the slides, will be shared in the coming days. While we hope to see you in our program, and we truly wish that you find a program and a path that's the best fit for you. So thank you again for sharing your time with us, and this concludes the webinar.